Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space, where I take stories from across the internet and read them for your entertainment. This particular story is called Why Won't They Just Die?, written by Vivid Membership 3959. It was another mission of exterminating another species. These humans were another illness in the universe that must be eliminated. Luckily for us, they were trusting. So trusting that they just provided us their biological details. We were humoured by their diplomatic requests. We pretended to agree as we sent a ship filled with the pesticide that would choke out their atmosphere with a poisonous chemical. It was as simple as usual. All the humans on the surface were choked out from the chemical mixture without us having to lift a finger. Another ship was sent with another dropship filled with the neutralizer, along with another ship filled with a few million soldiers to neutralize any humans who somehow survived. Our plans for an easy conquest were ended when we lost contact with our troops. We thought there was just an unfortunate incident. Maybe the landing systems just failed, so we organized another landing. When they arrived, they discovered a few lights in the night. However, yet again, they lost contact as soon as they sent a single message about some older chemical rockets coming up to meet them. That was concerning, because the humans were talking about their chemical rockets and their hope for a peaceful communication before our first attack. Yet, we still didn't want to waste too many resources for a conventional war. So we sent a slightly larger fleet of 2 ships and another poison container. However, we got good news that one of the 2 ships we thought to have been lost was seen in orbit docked to what looked to be a primitive space station. They transmitted a single message before once more their signal cut out. There are humans boarding the ship. They are wearing armor that we can't seem to penetrate, requesting permission to— "This is Earth, you alien scum!" later translated by one of our experts. After that, the transmission cut out, and we decided that Earth wasn't worth the struggle. We disabled the warp drives of the ship remotely, and figured that that was the end of it. We were wrong. USS Henry M. Jackson 6 months prior. They have taken us for fools. The air on the surface of our home planet is now unlivable hell, killing whoever is not in a submarine or a few bunkers that some people chose to build. All of the submarines left on the planet have moved to designated positions around the Atlantic and Pacific to decide what to do. Our radios were manually made weaker as the submarines gathered together. Almost immediately, every submarine sent the message, "Permission to launch payload." Somehow, our ship had become the new capital of our rebellion. Luckily, the aliens have not shot down most of our satellites, probably planning on using them. But what was more surprising, that the ISS was still sending signals to us where we were still responding. They were telling us what we knew. The planet's atmosphere had become poisonous, and all transmissions have ended from all stations around the planet, excluding a few bunkers from fallout bunkers. All of a sudden, 2 new ships appeared in orbit, making the ISS end all communications immediately. One of the 2 ships landed first and started to undo the damage that they had done. The second ship looked to be a troop transport, which was concerning. After a significant debate, the order was made to launch a missile as soon as it lands, wherever that may be. A few weeks later, there was a new crater in what was San Francisco. The fleet in the Pacific went to investigate what remains of the ship. There, we went to investigate the landed Cure ship. It was in good condition. Both its atmosphere engine and what would be discovered to be its warp drive was intact. We took it to what remains of Washington, where we have made it into our main base, mostly as a way to improve morale. Eventually, after a few months, another ship came, and we launched a modified missile. This time, it was made to only break through the non-existent armor. It was almost as if it hadn't had to engage in combat for what might have been forever. We were going to make them learn the hard way, the human way, and the way that would make them regret what they did. UN ship, the Enterprise, 29 months later. They deactivated their own ships, thinking that they could ignore their consequences. They didn't think about the Cure ship's cause. However, we were not them. Any of the crew that surrendered were imprisoned and treated with the dignity our species wished to have been. Eventually, we were able to translate between the prisoners, and they asked us why we were letting them live. Our response became engraved in the history books. We are humans and we came in peace. It is now your choice to stand down in peace. A few of them gave up some information about what they knew, requesting that we would be willing to spare their lives. That would depend on how their government would respond. We have learned where the capital planet was. Earth would be given its revenge, and they would be choosing how it happens. The Grand Council. The humans have arrived with a single ship. Despite them somehow knowing where our capital planet was, we were not scared of this bluff. We told them as much to a single response sent from their ship, the last one we ever read. You have awoken a people's rage that has already waking from its slumber. You have only fanned the flames of fire that will soon consume you and what will remain of your empire in the aftermath. After that, we detected they added missiles to their crafts. Only that's a lot of missiles. Thousands of missiles were launched from the ship. We couldn't intercept them all, and even more unfortunately for us, humans had nuclear weapons. That was the end of not only us, but our empire. Because those damn humans couldn't die. End of story. Story number 2. We did it, but others told us to. Written by Captain Keys 123. We thought it would be fun. Wars were always civilized business after all. It was supposed to be grand, sweeping, and romantic. 2 armies would clash, and there would be lots of tearing do. And once the grand conflict was over, that was that. You didn't hold a grudge. It was a relief from the boredom of jobs at home. You got done, shook hands, picked up the dead, and that was that. We didn't have a quarrel with the other male. This was between our bosses, see? It was the way of things. We challenged a dominant power to see who is better. We were just following orders. We took their Jupiter bases and wondered what all the hubbub was about further inward. Something about the targets we hit. I didn't understand. Sure, the bases didn't have any weapons, but this was war. We were doing our jobs. They opened up on us at the asteroid belt with 100 megawatt transportation lasers and massive drivers. We didn't expect that. This was supposed to be civilized. They made us fight our way through the belt, forcing us to lose 10 fighters for every kilometer of space. They were using civilian equipment against us. Those lasers were for high-speed transportation. Those mass drivers were for cargo delivery. Why would they not just use proper warships? We were just doing our jobs. The Martian colony, here we thought would be a grand, decisive battle. They would throw dozens of ships against us. They used their megawatt lasers and the mass drivers. Their reaction drives burned out anything that got close. They screamed they hated us and we didn't understand. We were just doing our jobs. We dropped bombs on their colonies. We seized their stations. We took them fair and square. But they were savage. Our troops landed and they were gunned down by heavy machine guns. Machine guns designed hundreds of years ago. And their designs had stayed the same. Their rifles and tanks were certainly different. But that machine gun, that Browning, had stayed the same. And they screamed at us. They called in close air support. They planted mines. They did everything they could to bleed us dry. We destroyed what the officers said to. We blew up domes. We destroyed train lines. Even those that had nothing to do with the war effort. So what? What's that got to do with us? We did it. But others ordered us to. And isn't it our right as conquerors? We were just doing our jobs. And their anger only grew worse. As we moved, they continued to throw everything they had at us. Soldiers sacrificed themselves so that their fellows could retreat in good order. They did those kamikaze runs they are so proud of. And the prisoners were angry. We gave them supplies and still they cursed us. We tried to be nice, to compliment them on their skill. And they were silent. They called it an interrogation. We called it a friendly chat.
Why do you force us to destroy so much expensive material? Damage to private property is very uncouth, you know. It's very expensive.
You bombed civilian targets, the fighter pilot snapped at us. What the fuck are you talking about?
Your people use private machinery rather than weapons to fight us. Well, you do both, but that's beside the point.
We didn't hide troops in civilian domes, the pilot shouted.
That was not my fault. We did what we were ordered to. It was not my doing. The commander simply felt a show of force was necessary, and we carried out directives of our superiors.
Necessary? You son of a... We had to restrain her then.
What inspires this loyalty? I demanded. You fight as though more depends on you than your life. What demands high sacrifice?
If it means beating baby killers, she snarled, her head pinned by one of the soldiers. She managed to move it. We'll throw everything we've got at you. Someday we'll defeat you, and then you'll see who's laughing. I was flummoxed.
Why do you do this? Why do you fight so hard? You're only doing your job.
She seemed confused by that.
Of course I am.
I knelt down to where 3 of my soldiers held her.
Yes. So why fight so hard? Why do you defy us like that? Why do you make us kill and destroy private property?
She seemed baffled. What do you mean? I fight because I'm part of the UN Defense Force. Why else?
But you don't need to fight this hard. We fight, one of us loses, we shake hands. That's war.
She looked befuddled. The fuck is wrong with you, Bug? What kind of war is that? Sounds like a slap fight. I tried to dumb it down for her.
You plant mines, you set up traps, you crash your ships into ours. What kind of war is that? What inspires this loyalty? This desire to sacrifice so much? You are but an employee of your masters. They demand no less than you doing your job, and no more. You do not need to go beyond.
She confusedly said, Because that's war, idiot. By the time we reached the lunar perimeter, our forces were battled beyond belief. Forces were still fighting over Mars and Mercury, and Venus attacks had been blunted. We finally encountered their war fleet. Many of the ships were barely finished. They had been pulled out of dockyards, still with workers aboard. Why was that? Our leader hailed their admiral. He congratulated them on their clever tactics and admonished them for their unsavory techniques. He gave them a list of booty to recover, requested a refuel, and gave them the time frame for when we would be on our way. The war was over. We'd made it to their homeworld. This is how our great competitive wars always were done. Something about this confused the admiral. This isn't a game, they spat. War isn't defending dots on a map. It's death. Vast, organized death. Are you telling me that you came all this way for fun?
No, we came here to see who is better.
That's the same thing.
No, it isn't,
our leader said dismissively. He paused.
Tell me, what inspires this loyalty in you? Aren't you just doing your jobs?
What?
You're just following orders, so are we. What inspires this unthinking, undying loyalty? You're just following orders, as all civilized beings should. We are just following orders.
The comm line went dead. The humans unleashed a terrible display of firepower. They learned a long time ago that loyalty is not simple deference, and that war is more than just orders. It is not romantic. War is not a game to them. End of story. I would just quickly like to thank the T5 peeps: Dragon Soup, Cold War Boomerwaffen, Severin Cerberus, Red Panda 121, Leslie 517, Bushmaster 177, Caspar Arnholtz, Cam Maxwell, Sans the Skeleton, Light Jock, Dragzoon WRE, and Lord Azrakal. Thank you very much.